Every story you love, every invention that moves you, every idea you wished was yours, all began as nothing. Just a blank page with a blinking cursor, asking a simple question. What do you see? Great ideas start on Mac. Find out more on apple.com/Mac.
The detective said missing kids usually come home. What happens when they don't?
Based on a true story.
Police looking for John Gacy.
We discovered bodies. By the looks of it, they're younger men.
The things he did to those kids. He's sick.
The system failed these families.
Devil in Disguise, John Wayne Gacy. Streaming now, only on Peacock.
Do you know how many there are?
Up to you to find out.
What's up, Why We Rollers? It's Chris here. Just letting you know that we are currently live on Kickstarter this Witchtober with Dance Macabre, medieval horror role-playing. This is a game that we've been working on for a long time. I've personally been working on it for a couple of years now, and I am just so proud to be bringing it to Kickstarter to share with all of you. So if you are into medievalism, if you are into zombie apocalypse narratives, if you're into brutal OSR combat, this is the game for you. So head on over to stillfleet.com/Danse, D-A-N-S-E, to follow along with the project, give it a back, pick up some beautiful books. We have the core rulebook, of course, as well as the Guide to the Abandoned World, a huge setting supplement that covers places outside of the medieval Mediterranean. We also have Unsunken Paris Below by my wonderful co-host, Wythe Marshall, which is a kind of a big city/mega dungeon setting. And we've also got Reliquary, which is a GM guide for relics and treasures and all kinds of goodies that you can find within the game. So check it out at stillfleet.com/Danse, D-A-N-S-E. Welcome to Why We Roll,
a tabletop role-playing game design podcast by the Stillfleet Studio.
We're your hosts, Chris Pickett, creator of the historical fantasy game Dance Macabre,
and Wythe Marshall, creator of the political sci-fi game Stillfleet.
Through the show, we hope to amplify new creative voices.
We chat with different indie TTRPG designers, talking through a range of questions that are pertinent to many designers, players, and GMs.
We hope to showcase fresh and even challenging ideas about what makes imagination-based games so powerful.
Before we introduce today's guest, a reminder. If you enjoy this episode, please consider supporting the show and all of our games over at patreon.com/Stillfleet.
Okay, let's find out why we roll.
Hey, we're here on Why We Roll with a special live taping in person. Again, we did one with Chris the other day, but here, Chris is not with me, unfortunately, due to ill health. It was going to be both of us, but very excited to talk to Lauren Bilanko. So,
hi, everybody.
Thanks for making time, and thanks for hosting us, or me in this case.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be on Why We Roll. This is so cool.
Oh, well, thank you, and we're so glad to be back in 20-Sided Store. We had an awesome time running some games with Dance Macabre here this summer.
Yeah.
And I always have an awesome time just when I'm in Williamsburg. I always
come
and
here. Everybody who played, I just rave reviews, and people are so excited. And I have the flyer upstairs, and everybody keeps asking, like, oh, what is that? And I'm like, oh, you just wait.
It's coming soon.
It's coming soon.
We're not here to talk about that today, but it is coming soon, and we did do some awesome playtests here. So we are going to talk more about Lauren's own work and the store and anything you want to talk about, really.
Yeah. Well, talking about like new projects and new stuff coming out, I'm so excited to share Mystic Aether Reverie with everyone. It's going to be here so soon. Releasing in October. We're going to have a ton of launch party events. I am so excited. I can't wait. I don't know what we're going to do exactly. I am definitely going to But so many people worked on it. It was like an 8-year project. It's, in the making, like great collaborations, just, you know, even the people who worked on the deck that didn't end up like in the final draft of it were so instrumental in getting me to this point, you know, just through helping with like, you know, just asking questions and getting ideas out and mapping things. I mean, my process is always like a very physical process for creating art and making things. It's funny because I was just like going through or trying to clear out room in our storage so that I can fit like all these copies that are coming on a pallet very soon. So I started going through a bunch of stuff and like getting rid of things. And it's funny because I found a draft of I used to do photography professionally before opening 20-sided. And back then when you know, showed your work, there wasn't like Instagram or, you know, websites where like I had to like code my own HTML. It didn't have like a ton of JavaScript. There wasn't like a lot of cool stuff you could do back then. So you had to make, you know, the standard was that you made a physical book, like a portfolio, and you literally like went door to door with it and you dropped it off at all these, you know, ad agencies and, you know, magazines and stuff like that. And so I realized that like my mapping of like how I laid out my photos, I found all my draft little booklets. So I make these little booklets and I put like I printed out all the photos on like little tiny pieces of paper and I made like this little mini book so I could kind of see if I liked those pages before I went, and I had the nice prints, you know, with like the, you know, archival paper made to fit into the perfect sleeves or whatever in the book. And then as I'm looking at them, I'm like, oh, that's exactly the process that I went through to draft the guidebook for the Reverie deck. I made like a hand sewed, I wish I had it with me, but I hand sewed a little mini zine. And every time I would like change a draft, I would print out the page, I would cut it out, I would tape it inside the book, you know, so that as I'm like, I could like edit. Cause sometimes when you're editing on a computer, you kind of like, it feels different than when you're like literally physically holding a book. And I'm like, you know, people are going to be like with this book in their hand and they're going to be sitting back and they're going to be, you know, flipping the pages. And so I wanted to read it and edit it with that kind of
you
motion.
see in spreads, you feel the paper.
Yeah.
This is all really great, Lauren. I really like the cold open on the process and on the Reverie. And also we're, you know, 20-sided and you're talking about sort of connecting those things physically in space. Before we get too far down that process line of thinking, which I really want to ask you more about. So how did you build a deck and how did you make it useful?
It all folds in to the whole history. I know where you're, I think I know where you're going. You want to know how did I end up at a game store and how did I end up
just introduce yourself,
making games? And hi, I'm Lauren Bilanko, owner of 20-sided in Brooklyn. We have a store here in Brooklyn, New York. We've been running events for, like 15, 16 years now. But, you know, I've always been an artist, you know, and that's always been my background. My medium was photography. And then after opening 20-sided, you know, we definitely moved into doing more role-playing games and storytelling. And at some point, after just like running a ton of Dungeons and Dragons and really being, you know, super influential in, I think the 5th edition, you know, of the game and the playtesting and our whole community, you know, bringing like hundreds and hundreds of people together to be giving feedback on that through, like at the time we would run like 8 tables, you know, and I would kind of craft like a opening to the modules, like because once 5th edition released, they didn't really have organized play in the same way that they used to. So there was, you know, there's the setting books, and sometimes they're campaigns that could go on for, you know, 10 years if you wanted them to. And we had a store. We were really building up our online sales. We were really building up, or trying to get everything online. We actually had that big push during the pandemic is what kind of got us into doing more retail. But we were starting to do more retail. We wanted to have the events. I didn't want to like spoil it for anybody who maybe wanted to buy the book and run it at home. So what we would do is we would get everybody started. So I would take maybe like a 1-paragraph hook in the book, and I would read ahead, and I would kind of see where the adventure is going. And we would play up to level 5 in the store. And then the idea would then be that people would then they'd meet their friends, they'd find their community. Because most people come to 20-sided looking for friends, looking for game groups. I think the hardest thing about getting into a role-playing game is finding people to play with and finding people to run the game and feeling confident in your abilities to run a game if you've never done something like it before. There's a lot of indie games out now that make that so much easier and really like lower the barrier to entry, I think, to that kind of storytelling. And now there's like lots of live streams so you can watch other people do it and kind of get a feeling for what it's like.
It's become more normalized.
It's become very normal.
Point, I remember that it wasn't that long ago in 5e. I remember when they started sending out the emails and you got the sort of test packets.
Yeah.
And that was still the era, I think, in most people's heads that I knew of, like, you play campaigns forever with your good friends in person. It was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
And it's been a real change due to, lots of things. The pandemic, the rise of sort of NSR, like indie games. And I think just more people coming to the hobby, which is ultimately really good.
Yeah.
And of course, podcasts, as you say, AP podcasts have rewritten that story. And it suddenly it's sort of widened on both ends. It's not just long campaigns, which is kind of in the middle now. It's also like AP quality kind of acting. And then in the other direction, well, I'm just going to get together for an hour and be a goblin.
What I noticed when I was streaming during the pandemic, a lot of games, it was like, this is such a great opportunity to create games specifically for this medium, which I think Daggerheart really does in their sort of like narrative stuff, which is kind of cool. It's very interesting that they chose not to run it for the new season of Critical Role, because I was like, wow, it seems like I would really love to see how it would work out. I mean, I'm sure they have plans to down the line, but it's really interesting because the whole time, so Mystic Aether came out of this idea. It started off as just the city of Black Bottom, and it was in the world of Mira. The branding for, the universe and the idea of it actually becoming an IP that was going to be what it is now kind of came later, but actually through me live streaming realistically. But prior to the pandemic, I wanted to have a unique setting to run Dungeons and Dragons in here at 20-sided. Because everybody at that point, there was, by the time like 2018 started rolling around, New York City had a lot of other game stores, a lot of bars, a lot of cafes, a lot of places where you could play D&D, which did not exist when we first opened. Right. That was really just pretty, like it really kind of hit hard, I would say, like in around 2018.
Right.
Like prior to that, there still wasn't much.
It's the 2010s. That's the OSR, right? As people kind of get back into it, it's more enabled to be cool in some way.
Yeah.
And then you get Stranger Things, the pandemic, and especially 5e,
right. And I think that's right when a lot of these actors started, performing D&D and stuff. And so it's very cool to see the whole industry kind of change and sort of grow in that way. And so I always wanted to create a setting, that was custom to the experience that you would have here.
Right.
And so as I was playing it, I realized, the more and more we would kind of run this adventure and run these games, and play in this custom world, I started to really understand why there are so many game systems out there, because it's like...
change stuff.
Yes, and I feel like, it was so hard because so much of the mechanics for Dungeons and Dragons are based in, like, all the books, like all of the character creation, everything that you're doing is so lore heavy that it's really hard to get people to stay. My world is a little bit more, it's a little bit set in the future to the Forgotten Realms. It's not medieval. It's definitely like, I wouldn't say, it's like, I don't know, kind of think like Nikola Tesla era of like technology,
like steampunk-ish. It's science fantasy.
Yeah, science fantasy. Like it's
magic,
magic tech. Like where magic and science are intertwined. Like I think it's a. I've just kind of coined it as being. It is a world where you're like basically a secret, part of a secret organization trying to restore balance to the world, or, trying to balance things out, in a sort of a corrupt world, or a world that's going corrupt that didn't start that way. So it's not, so I wouldn't say it's like, it's not super steam, I don't know. It's not quite steampunk. It's not quite noir, but it's not quite sci-fi, but it definitely has all of those ideas baked in there. Like, I'm a big fan of, Blade Runner and, and Dune and, the original and the new stuff, and Star Wars, of course. Oh my gosh. So, so there's so much in there that is influenced, kind of even before I started writing games. So, if I started to go back and really think about it, it's like, oh, I was already working on these stories and these ideas for this world in my narrative, stills right before we opened 20-Sided, I was working on a short film that was done all in still images. And the protagonist is, Vivian Greenleaf, and she's trying to, basically very, very much inspired by, I don't know if anybody's seen the movie, La Jetée. It's a Criterion Collection, black and white short film made in still images. And I was like, nobody's done anything like that since. And I was like, I can do that, but I can do it in color. and I can kind of give it a modern story.
Like the Ken Burns effect, avant la lettre. That was actually, older sort of style of animation, like almost stop motion, but not really. It's more just sort of crossfading.
Yeah, because right at that time, that was when cameras, like still cameras, were just starting to be able to do video, but they weren't quite there yet. But they would have like these like crazy massive shutters. So I used to photograph I did portraiture, and I did a lot of bands and, like album covers and stuff like that. But I also shot a lot of snowboarding and skateboarding. And so there was this feature in those cameras where you could like hold down the shutter and you could go grrr and get like the whole, like somebody going off a jump doing a 360, 180 backflip or whatever, And so, but before I would have to sit there and like literally push down the button very fast or hold it down for a long exposure and have a strobe light that would flash those cuts, right? So there's different ways that you could do that with lighting. It wasn't in the shutter speed or in the camera. And so, so when those cameras started to be able to do that, it started to get me thinking about playing around with, more sequencing of stills and storyboarding. And cause all of my work was already storyboard. Like I was already kind of, it was like this dream of wanting to make movies, but, really was a one-man show. So like, you can't make a movie by yourself, but you can do
also hacking
a lot.
Technology, like taking a system and saying, what can I do to get these different effects? So you can sort of see some of that design thinking. And I know visual artists have said that too.
Yeah.
In other media, right? Coming from illustration or something, but into the design, the mechanical design, the real abstract level. There's something that gets you thinking, that kind of hacking things apart, doing things your own way. So just to kind of recap, so
and then that folds totally into game design.
Totally, no, exactly.
Totally
we're going to get to Reverie.
Yeah.
So you're a professional artist, and you have this deep background with D&D, and then you open this store, and you're running D&D, and you create a setting, Mira, and you end up calling, the sort of cool name for it is Mystic Aether, right? This world for not just your friends, but for customers basically, but for people to have fun in your story you've created in this environment. And at that time, so can I ask, was it on your mind, like, I'm going to publish a book or a series of books, or was it more just, I just want to be able to run games and not have to kind of, why not, for example, use Forgotten Realms, Ravenloft, Dark Sun, Eberron?
Well, so it's funny because, so multiple things are happening all at the same time in the industry. Like, we're pushing things in the industry forward, and then the industry's giving me what I'm asking for, right? All at the same time. So like, right at that time, when I was, I don't even know where to start. Okay, here's the timeline. Okay. And so like the timeline of events that are going on is that like, I'm almost creating a separate full-time job outside of my day-to-day responsibilities, which is kind of the retail store and just the business in general, to run, D&D events. And at the time I was already publishing a lot of zines, like one-off zines. Most of them are out of print. We did some stuff with Wizards of the Coast. We did some stuff with Todd James, and like a bunch of different other artists. So I had these kind of like little specialty event modules that we kind of like. So hopefully I'll bring some of those back. But those are like collectibles now. If somebody owns the actual physical ones, we did stuff with Chamber Band. So like I'm sort of thinking, and maybe now I will like rewrite them a little bit into the Mystic Aether universe, so that the ones that stood alone by themselves, because they were literally just one shot adventures. So we could put those locations into the Mystic Aether universe, which I think I kind of already did on our Twitch show when we were world building the whole world. But timeline, let's stay focused here. So my partner Luis was like, I need you back. Like, you cannot turn this into a full-time job. Like, I mean, I was literally managing 8 game guides, and every season we would bring a new guide on, and we were running a room full of, what's 8 times 8 really? Like, we
64
were
players,
64 players, like we were like over capacitating our tables. I was really training DMs on how to run games for more people.
And this is basically, it's D&D, but you've added all the, you've changed rules, you've added things. Is that
No, at the
fair?
time we were just running D&D 5th edition.
Okay, but in
I
your
did
world.
create that. This is even before then. So I'm running D&D 5th edition. I'm running their modules, but I'm rewriting openers that are to lead into the Forgotten Realms books, right? So I'm taking a hook, and because of the format that we were doing, we're randomizing tables, we're inventing sort of a new way of playing that was exclusive, that was kind of pretty unique at the time. Maybe I don't think anybody's doing it because it's so much work. But it was really fun. It was really fun, and people still are like, "Bring that back!" And I was like, "Oh my god, it's so much work." But it was really great. And so a lot of the things that I do now, and a lot of the way that I write games and the way that I design games are kind of, and the way that we do things here, and little things that I'm experimenting with like my murder mystery parties and our scavenger hunts and all things, are all kind of folding out of like different aspects of all the different things that I've kind of invented over the ways. So, at the time I had this thing called Group RP, which is where we would take all 64 people and we would we're all one adventuring party, but then we would get to a point and we would split off to the 8 tables, and then each DM or game guide would run for that smaller group, and then we would come back at the beginning or end of every session, or some sessions would all be like, maybe we build a whole market, and we've got every season was unique. We went to a lot of work. We would literally build a set in the space every time we would do this. So, I mean, it was like, so I was like theater productions, happening for like, and those seasons would be like, anywhere from like 8 weeks to like 16 weeks long. So they were long campaigns. And you could either drop in, or we would sell them as like, you pay for like a chapter at a time. So you would do 1 month at a time.
Right.
And so in order to be able to continue to do that, because I loved it, my partner said, you can't do it. We need to be able to have all this time and all this work and energy that you're putting into this before something that we can do something with. So because I can't, at the time I couldn't publish D&D. I couldn't publish what I was writing and what I was working on under the OGL because it didn't exist yet, where D&D had created it was right before they had opened it up where people could write their own games in the Forgotten Realms or in their world and then upload it to...
The OGL was just mechanics. It wasn't...
Well, there was the OGL. So at a certain point, basically after I started Mira and after I started running Mira and really got into the setting, then D&D came around and said, "Hey, Lauren, guess what? We now have this opportunity where you can write and publish your own Forgotten Realms stuff." But at that time I had already gone down another path. Yeah. So I did take the OGL and I did start to publish a bunch of stuff that I was thinking about uploading to the DMs Guild, but it slowly just morphed into, essentially now I think I've inadvertently created my own system. But the plan was always to write stuff using the OGL and then publish it, or just using any system really. The Mystic Aether universe could be published So my plan was really, I'm going to do a version for D&D. I'll do a version for Powered by the Apocalypse. I'll do a version.
We'll do a grid system.
We'll do a grid. We'll do it in every system. It'll be for, it is an IPable license.
But it's so interesting because I think a lot of designers come out of the homebrew and they're writing their setting for their table. And you're coming out of running these massive events with all these other pieces.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting, different way
I feel like I keep coming.
It turns into a book eventually. I mean, the first, I take it the first of many, you now have this beautiful product, but it's like, it didn't come from you saying, I want to write Mira, Mystic Aether, the book. It was like, I need to run 64D, have these overlapping D&D experiences.
Yeah, I need to be able to create original content that could be something at some point. I don't know what that's going to be, is kind of how
and just testing fun stuff you liked, which is great. You kind of random walk through your own cool design process without the pressure because you're running the store.
And that's a beauty. That's where I'm so lucky to have a store where we are able, because I'm basically like, I have the event, we're hosting events, right? And people are coming to pay for events, but I can slowly start trying things within those like formats and I can test stuff out. So I don't have to like have a game and like cold play test something. I can just test a little bit of something and test a little bit of something. And nobody really knows that I'm slow, like I'm playing D&D, but I'm throwing in a little angle to it that seems like a little house rule and maybe at the time it was intentional that I was testing something for something I wanted to do, or maybe it was just like out of a necessity to kind of create the type of experience that I wanted for 20-sided. And then I worked really hard to kind of formulate that and write that up because that worked.
Right.
And then that later, which is more really how it happened. And then so it's like really comes out of a necessity of like, I'm working with beginners, people who have never played D&D, who are learning these things for the first time, and the tools of being able to run a 3-hour event to get people in, to get them playing right away, to get them as creative as possible with their characters and out of the because what happens a lot, like if you give somebody a pre-generated character, right, they're looking at their sheet. And so you'll get to this point in the game, especially if they're new and you're just throwing them into the middle of a campaign that's already been going on for several weeks, right? They're going to look at their character sheet and they're going to go, I don't know what I can do. Or I'm trying to do this thing, but it's not on my sheet.
They wait to fireball, right? They're like, when am I authorized to use this bullet point? Which is not how a real human really ever behaves, except I guess if you're new at a job, you're kind of young. It's, you know what I mean? Most people most of the time are not like, when can I use my special ability? It's just not sort of how thought works, but it's funny that it's exactly because of the procedures of D&D.
Yeah.
You're kind of looking at basically bullet pointed things you can do and waiting for your turn to speak up, especially in a group where you don't know people. So it's so interesting. That was a question. You kind of answered my question, which is having done both, when you've written modules not for a store versus I'm running store events at my store and I need my store to be a vibrant, welcoming community.
Yeah.
What is different about that? It sounds like one thing is the beginners, right? You get more people coming in off the street saying, this, it does, I think, generally pop up as like the cool RPG store in New York. No shade to anybody else. But, people come in here and they're like, it looks cool. It's Googleable as like the place you would learn D&D. What do I do, right? So you have beginners. And then also you have these massive communities. See, it's not just 6 friends or something. You have, even like you said, 1 year might be 64, 100 something people. And every year there's some stay, some.
Yeah, I would say, well, and our goal was really, because we always, we're limited on space and time, and there's we're in New York City, so there's no shortage of people that we want to introduce this hobby to. And, the bigger we can make, especially at the time, our goal was like, let's get it out there. We want this to be accessible to everybody. Right. We want everybody to be able to access this. This shouldn't be a thing that is gate kept, and I think that was a really big thing that we struggled with early on when we first opened the business. There was a lot of gatekeeping in this industry. There was a lot of toxicity in this industry, and we had to fight so hard. Right, I can't tell you how many people came up to me after every D&D event and were like, you're totally doing this wrong. And I was like, well, you can go somewhere else because this is how we're going to do it here.
May I ask you, these tend to be like older guys? Like, are they, you know what I mean? Like, is it sort of the grognard stereotype?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. People who had this expectation of what D&D was and what they were used to and what they had expected. And when they came to 20-sided, it didn't fit into the mold. They enjoyed it and they loved it, and they wouldn't have, if they didn't like it, they just would have not come back, right? They were like, this is awesome, but you should be doing this and you should be doing this. And I don't really think you know what you're doing. And I'm like, because nobody liked the randomizing of the tables. Like, people were like, I want to come and I want to sit with my friends at the same table and I want to play with these people. And I was like, no, it doesn't work. And I'll, and sure, I could make it work, but that's not the vibe that I was going for.
Right,
that's not what I wanted. I want to build community. I want people to be able to have an opportunity to make friends. I don't want people to drop out of a game because they, everybody's got different play styles, and not everybody's play style works together. And when you've got 64 people in a room together, all playing D&D together, the chances are that not everybody's going to get along.
Right.
And if you say, okay, we're going to have a 16-week campaign and you're stuck with these 5 people out of all of these 64 people every week, you're just going to politely stop coming if you didn't have a good time your first session. Or if there was one player that just kind of got under your skin and maybe you had a tough day at work and you're like, today's not the day that I can just deal with that. Right.
Yeah.
But for the sake of the community and the sake of fun and understanding that you're going to a public space that is open to the public and is open to everybody and is welcoming to everybody, then if you know that I'm randomizing the table and that out of a 16-week campaign, you might only have to play with that person one other time, 2 times out of 16 weeks, right, with randomizing the seats, then you're much more willing to just suck it up for that one time and then really enjoy all the other times.
It's absolutely great about community building. I love that point about how did you engineer that? Because again, it's a game design thing. It's just most of us, I run a lot of games at cons. Even when we're very successful, we have a couple tables, concurrent, 3 GMs. We're usually not managing 64 people for 16 weeks in that way, where there's sign up, there's money involved. And in a way, like you said, they're beginners.
And at the time also when people didn't charge for D&D.
Right.
Like that was also very foreign. Like people were like,
but it makes it better generally, honestly, unless it's your good friends, right? But I was just going to say, I think it's also interesting because at the level of genre, it makes it more picaresque, which in some ways is true to the old school tradition of Conan, right? Mm-hmm. Conan, the Grey Mouse. Sometimes you get separated from your buddies and you're like, I don't know, I'm stuck with this annoying goblin guy. But it's because it's a short story and weird tales or whatever. And it actually is truer to that sort of picaresque Barry Lyndon thing of ups and downs. And sometimes you have a best bud and they get murdered by an orc with a cool musket. And you're like, well, I'm never going to see that guy again, but I, an adventurer, continue to adventure. So I think it's fun how in some ways it answers like a community thing, but also builds like just a different energy. And I think again, it's cool to hear how some of that was like, it worked out over time, but it wasn't like you went in with some great, amazing vision. It was more like you had a lot of experience and you knew it would kind of work and you sort of experimented. So I like that ladders up to now you can do the events you want, you can publish material. So it's cool to hear sort of. Yeah,
like I feel like it's sort of like, as I kept like kind of like looking back, like I'd do a thing and then I'd look back at like, where did that come from? Or people ask me like you, and I kind of like then think about it and I go, oh yeah, like what did get me into this? And like, why did I decide to do this? And then I started to like realize I'm like, oh, you know what? Like I've been doing this my whole life, like since I was a kid, putting on performances and, LARPing, but I didn't know that LARPing was a thing, and like playing role-playing games, but I didn't know that was a thing. Like I have all sisters. So like I didn't really get into role-playing games until I was in my late, mid-20s, so.
Was it like college, if you don't mind asking? Like what?
No, I moved to New York, and I'm hanging out with a bunch of my friends. They used to in Williamsburg in the early 2000s. So this is I moved here in 1999. It was like the early 2000s, or it was before 9/11 actually. So it might have been 99 or 2000, and in Williamsburg was a very different place. So my friends had this like whole entire floor of like a building. So it was like, I want to say it had to have been like 10,000 square feet was just their apartment.
Yeah.
There was like there's like literally a skate ramp built in there with a pool table on the other side of the room and and an entire living room that's like the size of my whole apartment, and then 5 other bedrooms that are the size of my apartment.
Yeah,
now,
it's like $1,000 a month.
Like, yeah. It was just like ridiculous, right? So it was kind of the hang out place. Like I had keys there. I would hang out around the table. And so every night, everybody would just get together around this gigantic kitchen table.
Right.
And everybody's playing NetHack. Okay, this is like pre-internet, like it's dial up, but our friends they're all computer scientists, they're all MIT, they're all like literal like geniuses who like work for NASA now and shit like that. And like they created what is now essentially like Apple Play, but it like locally.
It was like a LAN network or something?
It was all
like
LAN network, yeah. And it was like Mother. And so we all had a password to like upload all of our music to Mother. So like we had our own like, you know, so we'd all go there to listen to each other's music and like hang out and like, you know, essentially live stream music. It just didn't exist then, right? And so they're all playing NetHack and they're like, oh, you should play this game, you know? So I download it, I go home, I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, I've got like all my key commands, you know, like literally like printed out,
this
like
is
on my computer.
Right? It's like you
if you don't know what NetHack is,
I've definitely played NetHack, but not since I think
it is a D&D game, but it is literally like dots and lines on a black screen, like white dots and lines. It's
random,
Pac-Man.
though, right? You get stuff at random. You can die. You make a new character. It's sort of very
well. It goes
punishing.
up levels.
Yeah,
it's very punishing. It's like basically like old school D&D. Like you play your class and you're going through a dungeon and you're trying. And so I knew nothing. About D&D. Okay, and I'm trying to play this game, and I'm just like, and I'd come back to the table. And I'd be like, I don't get it. They're all like leveling up and they're talking about their levels. And I literally cannot get past level 1. Like every time I like sit, it's impossible. I cannot get past level 1. Everything I do, every character I try, I die immediately. Like first thing I try, you're dead. I'm like, what the fuck? This game is crazy. Like what's going on? And they're like, well, don't you know? Like, haven't you ever played D&D? You know, cause like the things I was saying, they're like, well, that's so obvious if you know what a rogue is or if you know what a cleric is. Like, yeah, of course clerics can't go to the evil altar. Or of course, you know, your drow can't go pray to a god, you know, or whatever I did. I can't remember. It was one of those kind of things. It was either like an evil character trying to go to like a good thing. And I'm like, well, what are the rules? Like, I don't know, you know? And so my friend or Run is like, okay, here. They're like, well, they were all just, first of all, totally stunned. They're like, what, you of all people have never played D&D? How is that possible? Because they all know me from photography and the stories that I'm telling and the things I'm doing. And they're like, okay. Well, you have to be the DM, but not yet. You have to play. And there's all these rules. Like, you have to play first. You have to do all these things first. You have to do all this stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck am I getting myself into here? So you got
pushed due to your personality into being the GM of your group. That's great.
And so, like, he sent me home with, like, the AD&D Player's Handbook. I literally read it cover to cover because I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And I remember the D&D cartoon from when I was a kid. I just literally never knew that it was a game. So like as I'm reading the Player's Handbook, I was like, oh, now
it's like any other IP. It's like Lord of the Rings or something. It's like, okay, whatever. I've seen these tropes.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, now it's all coming together. And then we never played. 10 years went by. And but in that time, literally like a week later, I was like walking home and no joke, on top of my garbage can was a D&D starter box that somebody was throwing away with the dice in it, which I still have today.
That's
and
great.
it was like, you know, the old dice where you had to like use the crayon to like put in the numbers, you know, and like,
it's one color plastic resin. And it's very sharp.
Well, each die was a different color. So you had like the D20 was one color, the D6 was another color. And then I think they were missing dice, so they were threw in other newer dice, you know, like normal dice that we now all play with, of course.
So that was a sign, right? It was like
it was a sign.
It felt like
that's what it felt like. I was like, I have to play this game. And then I would say like 10 years later, my friend Troy, who was very much involved in the very early stages of creating Mystic Aether in the world of Mira, was my first DM. And he, you know, I worked at this cafe that he hung out at all the time and we were always talking and I was just saying, and somehow he brought up that he wanted to get this role-playing game together or DD game together. And he did not think that it was something that I would be interested in. And I was like, what? I'm like, I've read the Player's Handbook. Let me play.
Like cover to cover.
Cover to cover. I can host. I'm like, I want to play, you know, all this stuff. And so it was so funny. So we played a 5-year campaign that I thought was D&D, and I just, like, I think once I opened up 20-sided, realized that we were playing GURPS.
Hello. In addition to our regularly scheduled interviews on Why We Roll, we are doing some extra special streams with a bunch of different friends. We actually have 4 different streams to show off Danse Macabre and really continue playtesting, kicking the old tires. We have different settings and different groups. So if you're interested in the game, maybe you're on the fence, maybe you just love AP, check them out. I'm going to list these times. They'll also be easy to find on our social media and whatnot. So the first is October 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's with the Maniculum and Leonardo Andrade, and we're really excited. That's going to be one run by Christopher Pickett. Then we have 10-12, so that's also Sunday on the 12th at 7 p.m. I'm going to be running that one, and that is produced by Rachel Cordell, who is one of the RP jesters who is running Danse Macabre. So she's actually helped us put together with some very special guests, so we'll make some big announcements there. And I'm going to be running that. That's going to be set in Paris, in the Unsunken campaign setting. Then on 10-19, so that's again a Sunday, October 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern, Chris will be running a game with the Twice Rolled Tales crew. We love them. They do great AP work, and we're lucky to have them join us. And then finally, I'm going to be running one with some game designers from around the world on Sunday, 11-2, so that's November the 2nd. And this one is at noon because time zones. So that's going to be with 3 different game designers, and again, we'll make some announcements, and that will be in some TBD other settings. So they're all going to be sort of different, and if you like the game, if you're curious about the game, and you just want to see different people tackle it, well, we do too, so that's why we put those together. So we don't know what's going to happen, but we're excited to find out. They're all Sundays. 3 of them are at night. One of them is earlier in the day, Eastern time. And you can find everything we do streaming-wise at twitch.tv/Stillfleet or on youtube.com/@Stillfleet. I think, I don't know, you just look us up on YouTube. We're there. And yeah, we really welcome player interaction. Not trolling, guys, but, ask questions or make suggestions. Maybe you can help somebody out of a jam, and maybe, we'll give somebody a little bit of an advantage or a boost if you have a good idea in the chat. So please come help out our hapless pilgrims as we try to kill them over and over again in the zombie apocalypse of the Middle Ages. That's it.
So you have a very interesting, I didn't know all this, but I think when I met you, it was a little before the pandemic, but then it's interesting. I think of you as someone who's really, really into D&D specifically, but it's very funny to hear that your first big campaign the whole time was actually GURPS. So that's very funny. We should jump into Mystic. We should jump forward and really and debut the Reverie and have you explain just how great this deck is. And for the pod, just narrate it, but you can show people. Also, if anyone has questions, hey, I see Taylor's joining the chat.
Hi.
If anyone has questions, just pop them in. But yeah, I want to jump forward. So long story short, you know a lot about D&D now. You've run a lot of games, many things.
Yeah, I've written like how to run games on like blogs for Wizards of the Coast before, all the OGL stuff and and really was informative in not only like how, different stores. I was very much, once I kind of figured it out and kind of had something going really well with 20-sided, my whole mission was to help other stores around the country and help Wizards of the Coast create better materials for people to run games the way we were doing it.
So to grow the whole pie, like not just for your store, but for everybody to have basically more people enjoying this awesome hobby.
Yeah. So I tried to share everything that I did, the way that I did it, all my prep for all of those games. I, gave it to them. They, I would write up after every session kind of what we did, how we did it, kind of how I broke down. Cause they would provide, back then they used to provide a module. This is like kind of during in 4th edition and into the, for 4th edition, it was like every store everywhere in the country played the same 5 pages of the module on Wednesday,
right?
The 18th of June.
Encounters or something. They had like it was very kind of like go fight a minotaur or whatever.
Well, the idea was that you could essentially, if you could play at any store and just pick up the campaign,
right?
So they wanted it to be this whole where the whole world was kind of like how a TV show airs,
synchronous.
It's the synchronicity where everybody's got this shared hobby around the world where we could all know. So it was we know exactly what happened in the game because we're all playing the same game at the same time.
That's kind of cool.
It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. We'll see if they, I also am really thankful that when I needed to expand and grow my business and make changes, they kind of dropped that a little bit and made it more free because, one one shoe doesn't fit every store.
Right.
And so that's, that's also kind of like a hard thing. So it's hard to, create these kind of, these modules that are going to work for, for every location. And also like just, maybe Wednesdays wasn't a great day for me to run D&D,
Yeah.
I want to do other things and like, I don't know. So it was really interesting. I'm happy about their new starter box is so fantastic. To me, I'm like, this actually feels like the free materials that they used to give us to run in stores, but now they're making it available to literally everyone. Because that used to be the thing. It was like that stuff was exclusive to the game guides and to the stores running the games. And so that was what you would get, right? You didn't get paid. Stores were running things for free. Wizards of the Coast would give the stores these materials so that you could compensate your GMs. We would compensate our GMs more and we would charge, and people kind of knew that and they were cool with that. And it helped, kind of grow the industry into what it is now, where people can think about it as a profession and take it very seriously, in that way to create better content, right? So like, all of that stuff is why we have, Brandon Lee Mulligan selling out MSG, right? Like that, like all of these little things happening on the ground have led to the popularity and the expansion of a game to be able to
really, it's like basic
create
economics.
Careers around it.
It's like basic, like everyone gets better at drawing.
Yeah.
If there's an industry where you can buy pencils or pens or something, and it's not like we're all having to go make our own charcoal sticks. Yeah. And it's not that that's not cool or someone shouldn't be encouraged to learn how to make charcoal sticks. But if you just, it's like, it just raises the kind of boat to have some level of professionalism, even though, of course, most of the time it's, in a way, I think that's one of the great things about it. It's largely free. But then there are costs to running a store. There's costs to designing and printing materials. There's costs to GM's time. So it's cool that you guys were leaders in trying to figure out, I think, some of the economics of making this approachable. Again, a welcoming community doesn't feel like gatekept in terms of economics, but also people are rewarded for doing a good job of running games. So I think, again, it's a model that's evolved and in a good direction generally.
Yeah. And we definitely weren't alone in that. At the time, even before me, there was, John Stavropoulos was running gaming conventions in New York City. And, he's really the one who, kind of taught me everything I needed to know about bringing GMs on. And I literally just copied his Google Forms of how, because he would have a whole form for people to submit games that they wanted to run at his convention. And I was like, oh, those are all the questions I really should be asking to get people in. Right. So there was a lot of kind of back and forth where he was doing these things like once a year, but then I started doing them 5 days a week. Right. So we would bounce ideas back and forth with each other and really able to kind of learn and grow. And then, he, started working very closely with, consulting all these other game companies, big, his resume is a mile long, and now he's teaching and doing all kinds of stuff. But, a lot of the things that, I think kind of are now, in all of these other indie games or even in D&D itself, are coming from actual play, people doing it.
GM, store owners, conference organizers getting together and kind of and it's a process of invention that there are anthropologists and historians who track this stuff, but it's kind of minor even there. You can think about martial arts or something, or a surf style, or I spent a lot of time interviewing farmers who did very specific things indoors with lettuce only, and it's and cannabis. And it's those are specific skills that you can sort of ex post facto write up and teach.
Yeah.
But often, when a lot of what I did, I got paid by Cornell to go find people who'd already done it so we could develop a curriculum. So it was that kind of chasing after, who are the people who already know how to do a thing? So I think you guys were part of, like you said, other groups, but there was a sort of community of, especially with 5e, with the kind of explosion of popularity, how do we make all these things happen in a way that's more fun and more accessible. I think we should turn to Reverie. I don't mean to cut you off talking about the store, because the store is awesome.
Well, and it all kind of led to then me publishing, this, which is the first. So, obviously, well, it's not obvious because it's obvious to me. It's maybe not obvious to anybody else because it's all in my head.
So what is Reverie? I think at the most not obvious. So what is Reverie at the end of the day?
So, Reverie is a divination deck and parlor game, which is an artifact in the Mystic Aether universe.
So it's cool because it's a game within a game.
It's a game within a game within a game within a game, and it is a game. It is a game that is a game within a game. Anyway. So, how I got to publishing this as the first product in the Mystic Aether universe and not the role-playing game, well, I don't know.
But it's like a game aid, right? I mean, it's a game on its own, but I could use this in another game, right?
It is that correct? So much. This is a seed for everything that I'm trying to do. So I started to do, so I kind of have like a seedling of a world. I've got Google Drives worth of world building and a map for the whole entire thing. And we've been playing in the world. I created brochures just to kind of get people to be able to build characters and immerse themselves in the setting. I've created a tabletop game, but the rules, I'm changing the rules a lot, I think, for the role-playing game. But one of the things that I did with the character creation, so it started off kind of with the character creation of being able to write. I wanted people to sit down at a 5e game and be able to make a character without, instantaneously, like within 30 minutes, and then play a proper Dungeons and Dragons game, right? Because I was teaching classes at the time where I would be like, learn to play D&D, and it really was just, let's take 3 hours and build your character, and we didn't even get to them choosing their spells. I just was like, go home and choose your spells, but now you know what you're doing with them. So there's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack. And I was like, there's got to be a better way to just get people playing and then let all of that mechanics and stuff come later. But I found that right when I was trying to do that with D&D, then all of a sudden I like build a level 0 character in Mystic Aether, go home, and now level up your character after one session to a level 1 D&D character. And then now all of a sudden they come back with a medieval character, and it's no longer anything that they made in with the Mystic Aether universe because they were so inspired by then all the Forgotten Realms lore. And so, fair. So I was like, well, let me figure out. Well, okay. And also at the time, I was playing a character that used this deck. And so I had been performing some things with, it started off as a bunch of Magic the Gathering cards that I had cut up and had in a little pouch. I was playing an elf ranger during the 5e playtest with all of the GMs that were running games. So we had our own home game of just the game guides, and we would take turns running for each other.
Oops, all GMs.
Oops, all GMs.
Yeah,
oops, all
everybody's
GMs.
a GM. Yeah,
Everyone's a GM. And so my elf character, because I really liked in the D&D lore where elves don't sleep, they meditate. And somewhere there's one sentence in one of the books that D&D published at some point. Who knows where I saw it, but it said sometimes during that long rest, you could have like a premonition or a dream or something. And I was like, oh, so I created the Reverie deck. So it started off, I just was cutting. Luis would throw out magic cards all the time. Like, these are just commons. We've got a million of them. We don't need them. We didn't get so many donations. We were running so much magic at the time too, and we'd have so much stuff. So, anything, I was like, save them for me. So I would cut out, just the images, and I had this little deck. And, so I was in this game, and I would, whenever my character would, take a long rest, I would draw a card, and sometimes the DM would sort of fold it into the narrative, or I would get to say kind of, something personal for my character to kind of help build that out. And then a friend of mine, Sunny Etima, who is like a brilliant musician, artist, she would have these like art tea parties. And, she would invite incredible people to these to perform and to come and hang out in her art studio. And she asked me if I would share something. And I was like, I don't have anything. She's like, I know you have something. You have something. Dig something up. You have something. And I was so nervous, and I didn't know what I was going to do. But I'm like, okay, well, what have I done for the past, I don't know. At that point, we maybe had 20-sided for, so maybe 6-7 years. I can do math. And so I was like, okay, well, let me see if I can tell a story, an improvisational story for a live audience just with these cards. And so I did. And it was fucking awesome. And so that led, because I always wanted to make a tarot deck with my photography.
Sure.
And then I'm making this fantasy world, and then I'm trying to tie everything, and all these things are merging together, right? All these things are coming together for me, and I'm like, I'm getting older, and I'm like, I got to streamline all my ideas into one thing, right? So, like, let's put it all under one big umbrella of the Mystic Aether universe. So I tell this storytelling thing with the deck, and then I'm like, oh, this is it. This is so cool. And then, then I start table that. Moving on to other things, doing more role-playing stuff, building out the world and thinking about the Artura as a character that you can play that uses this deck, right?
So this is like a kind of class, or
it's a human that is born with an ability to communicate with the collective consciousness.
Got it.
So in my timeline of where we're playing the role-playing game. Oh no, are we running out of time? I can talk forever.
No.
But in our timeline where we're running the game, if you're born Artura, so the Artura are kind of, like, magic and science are intertwined. Anybody can learn magic, but a great calamity happened, and a lot of things kind of got lost and from the old ways of this magical forest and connecting with the hive and the way that people used to, like, this kind of, so we're sort of, the planet is like the reverse of Earth, of like our history. So instead of coming from a history where we had kings and queens and conquering, we had this magical force that provided everything, all the sustenance to but then that magical forest exploded. And just like, kind of like a nuclear fallout, 10 years of darkness.
Studio Ghibli, like Nausicaa vibes, right? Like going from kind of a eco-utopia towards sort of eco-dystopia.
Yeah.
Reasons might be a little unclear, but we kind of can fill in.
And I did that because I didn't want to have to write the past. And I was like, there's going to be a calamity. We can just start there, and everything before that timeline I don't have to worry about. Until I made the Reverie deck.
Aha.
And then I had to come up with the history of the forest. So this book is the lore. So the idea, this is all written in character, in world. So Aaron and Kaya is a Safina, which is sort of a kind of like an elf. So a human that can, at 100 years old, go through a rite of passage and take an oath to live a longer life, but their life has to come with some, they're devoting their life to some sort of greater purpose. So building out Aaron and Kaya's backstory, his mom is an Artura. He doesn't know what an Artura is. Most people who are born at this time period don't know, they might not know that they're Artura. They might not know that they have this ability. It's maybe, it's kind of like how we view maybe mysticism and tarot on Earth here, where it's sort of like, yeah, that's just a parlor trick, or you're trying to, get money out of me if you're doing like a tarot reading,
or it's art
whatever.
Or something.
Or
it's a personal practice, but it's not
whatever.
Part of the economy in a way.
Well, or there's just a lot of people that don't believe in it, right? Like, I don't think that you're actually tapping into this other thing or this collective consciousness, right? But me, Lauren Bilanko, truly believes in it, and I think that we, it's just something we've closed off in our minds of being able to tap into those energies and those frequencies. And so I was like, well, how can I don't know. I did a lot. I did a lot of mescaline and mushrooms in my early high school 20s, 30s. So, I've been on a lot of psychedelic trips that have opened my mind to other planes of existence, I would say. And so, like, part of me was sort of like, how can I make a guidebook to a psychedelic trip? No, but that's not what this ended up being. But I thought about it.
It's got a lot of origins. So it is kind of, it's tied into this game you're running, and it comes out of that game. It's also tied into this long-standing kind of mystical or spiritual practice. And a lot of just the art, like you're saying, collecting cards, sort of the cut-up technique, right? Or telling stories through images. So it's tied to these different things. But at the end of the day, so what is the Reverie? Can you kind of do the elevator pitch of like, how does one use this? Either, and take it however you want. A game on its own, or an aid
So
within a science fantasy.
If you know nothing about role-playing games and you just pick this up in my store in 2 weeks when it's out, or if you've already bought it on Kickstarter.
You could pick it up in 2,
or if you pre-ordered it, wherever you are, or if you have no interest, whatever. No, but what you're going to get is a 110-page guidebook of lore that will explain what is on these 28 cards. These 28 cards are the divination deck. So there is a unique divination system based on the astrology of the planet Mira. So the planet has 2 suns and 3 moons. So the oracles of this deck are based around that. So there's Avon and Nova, which are the twin suns, Igneous, Alunra, and Nakamura, which are 3 dragon moons. So they're personifications of the dragons that existed, and the moonwalkers and the Artura, which are humans that I would say, like, genetically, those traits have kind of maybe been lost to time for whatever reason. It's all written in the book. You can read all about it. Or maybe not. Maybe it's in a footnote, and I've alluded to it, and I'll get to it in the role-playing game later. But maybe you've played with me, and you've picked it up, and you've developed something. So anyway, there's lots of different ways that people have come at this lore. I've seeded a lot of cool things in here for people who've been playing the game for the past 8 years, for people who have been looking forward to the rule system that's going to come out for the role-playing game. And also, if you are just into just divination in general and you are looking for a new system for divination, there are just very traditional spreads.
So sort of
here,
like tarot,
but it's
a different system. So it's coming from you know tarot well, but also you have these other traditions, your own ideas.
Yeah, like there's a lot of divination systems. So if we think about tarot, if we think about rune stones, if we think about pendulums, I'm learning about rods, I Ching, right? So this is now Reverie is its own divination system. The basis for the lore of this specific deck. So my idea is that, like, I could, because I've already had a couple false starts with the deck, but I made a deck that I was like, that can't be the first one that's published because it's way too symbol heavy. And if nobody knows the world, then it's going to be impossible. And I wanted to make a deck that was easier, like everything else I do, that is beginner friendly. And for me, I was always having a hard time with tarot and understanding all the symbolism and the history and the meaning.
It's a lot of cards.
There's a lot of cards. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of depth. There's hundreds and hundreds of books written about it. So I was like, well, like, I want to, and I can never remember symbols. My brain kind of works in sort of really weird ways. So I drew symbols that made sense to me. Maybe they'll make sense to you, but, relationship looks like a little maze. And I'm like, yeah, it's complicated.
Oh, I like that. That's interesting.
Responsibility looks like, like an arm, like the, that, I was thinking that, like, 60s poster, maybe 30s poster, the
Rosie the Riveter.
Yeah. The symbol for realization is like it looks like an eyeball, and then the symbol for reflection looks like a mirror of itself, right? So kind of playing with, like, ideas. The symbol for mind has a line kind of going up through the center. For matter has the line coming out the outside, so it's like external and internal, right? So just kind of playing with some very common ideas, basing it off of so as a farmer, the Farmer's Almanac. So there's 28 months in a year on Mira, and so each card is a month in a year. There's also 28 days in a month, so you could look at it however you want to look at it. But the trajectory of the story of kind of going around is a cycle, right? So it's a spiral. The idea of a spiral. We're starting, maybe at the beginning of the year, and we're kind of going through, kind of all the cycles of the year, and then kind of coming around, and going into our next year. So we start, so we kind of follow these patterns. And so the guidebook is sort of written from this archaeological perspective of this lost artifact and trying to understand it and make sense of it, and sort of say, because I don't like how some tarot guidebooks are like, make you feel like this is the way it is and there's no other way to interpret. Or that's at least how I've felt maybe when I've done readings initially for people too, where I'm learning the tarot and I do a reading for you and you're an expert at the tarot and I'm giving you the reading and I interpret what I'm seeing with these images that are kind of playing with each other. And, as an artist, I'm very accustomed to how do images change in meaning when you put different images next to each other, right? So I'm laying them out and I'm interpreting them, and I've got the person I'm doing the reading for tell me that that's not what that means. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe I'm intuitively seeing something that
they missed.
That they missed,
they don't
right?
want to see,
that they don't want to see. So I didn't know because I'm not experienced with enough. So my goal was to sort of make a deck. And so what was really lacking in early versions of the deck was really having the art that was so compelling and had the deeper meaning just in the imagery itself. Like, because I mean, if you're new to this system, you're going to look up all these symbols and you're going to be going back and forth to the guidebook. And that's not sort of the intention I wanted for people getting into it. And so, one day I was just sitting around, Kip and I go way back. We used to work together and, we're just really good friends, and our roofs, he just moved, but our rooftops were connected. So we would just kind of sometimes meet up if he was out on the roof and hanging out or whatever. And so, I'm hanging out with him. He's showing me some of his new watercolor paintings, and I kept forgetting that he did painting and he did this kind of very folkloric work. And I'm looking at this work and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need you to do my Reverie deck, and he agreed. And so the art is just, and it was crazy because I was like, I would sit down, I would tell him the stories of each, because I had already planned out like what every card was and the meaning of each card and the story behind each card. I'd done so much world building by the time Kip got brought onto the project. But then when I went to write the guidebook, I saved the card descriptions for last because I thought they were going to be really easy to write because it was the first part that I created. But then after going back and looking at the images and wanting to write the description, the meanings of the cards really based on the symbolism in the art. So I went back and I started to kind of tie different symbols together that, and tie it to my stories based on kind of what he had put in there. And it became a whole nother process that definitely took me way longer.
The joy of the art copy duo, right?
Yeah,
in marketing
yeah.
And in game design, I think it's very similar. That's one reason I feel like it's always been a natural thing in and out of kind of building games, and then the day job in marketing where I'm writing things and I'm working with an artist. It's the same with the night job of well, the thing they're drawing isn't exactly what I had in mind, but it might be cooler. It probably is cooler, but it might make me rethink what I just wrote. So there's a kind of recursion. There's a back and forth. So I think that's cool. I think there's a lot of recursions, and I think there's something special about cards too. For whatever reason, I've always liked tarot, and I'm a materialist, but I've always found when I was doing mushrooms or when I use tarot, it just deepens, it re-enchants the material for me because it helps me see, like you said, things that you might have overlooked, right? And you pull it out and you're forced to kind of reckon with these symbols if you it's like a game. You play it seriously, you take it's serious play. Yeah. And you can unlock some sort of discovery. In the same way that, a psychedelic experience, whether or not you think you have traveled to a mystical realm, it lets you see the world very differently, and it re-enchants things you might overlook or take for granted. So I think in general games do that, but I think there's something fun about the games that are using symbols, like even code names or code words are really kind of fun. This is that next level. And I like that it's not tarot just because there are a lot of tarot decks. So why not try something new? It's kind of interesting. Something we've talked about, what it would be to do a tarot deck. Yeah. This is a different approach, right? So that's cool that you synthesized all your work as a game designer so far into this first sort of dual product. It's a book that does have cool stuff in it.
It has cool stuff in it.
Also the cards themselves.
Yeah. And then there is, so there's regular spreads, but then a friend of mine was like, well, your deck is so small, you should really do a spread that uses all of the cards. And I was really struggling with figuring out a spread that was different than the other ones. And I brought back in my, what I do with writing adventures and story structure. And I went back to that thought of me performing that reading, that storytelling experience at my friend Sunny's art tea party. And so that's where the Rhetorica reading came up. So I don't know if you guys can see it, but this is this outline here. It's not written in this book. It's teasing. This is just a Rhetorica spread that you can do as a solo journaling thing, but I've been performing it on Newtown Radio, bringing on different guests too, which I think you're going to be coming on soon. So that you're going to be doing it. And so you go through 4 chapters, but this is how I would organize our adventures, right? So we have 4 weeks, each week in a month, and then we have 4 chapters, and we have our 16 weeks. So this is my basics of preparing adventure campaigns and doing adventure writing. And it is the very basic example that I use when I teach story structure in my workshops. So it's like, again, it's just like, it all kind of like has kind of come, like I so it's the kind of that idea where it's like back in the day when I was running those games, and then I'm trying to come up with this thing, and then it kind of circles back to be like, oh, I've already done this.
Well, it's interesting.
I already know that this works.
You're taking the form that works so well. So the 16 weeks, the different kind of randomizations, but then it's your story, your world, and you're threading those things in, but it's a totally different form.
Yeah.
So instead of a big event at a store, it's a personal. In this case, it's a solo game within, right? So
it could be a solo game. It can be a
utility.
performance, and when I write the role-playing game, it will become a tool to help you write your adventures set in the Mystic Aether universe.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so that's coming. And then there are other parlor games too, which is crazy. So then I was thinking about the history of tarot and how, playing cards are like the minor arcana.
Right.
And so I was like, well, we have to have games that you could play. So Shadow Whisper is a game that's very much influenced by it's a social deduction game that's very influenced by games like Coup or Love Letter. And then Alchemy is another really quick parlor game where you're just like, very simple, like flip over a card, who had the number kind of go sort of game, and just collect the most. And the theme of the game is like you're trying to collect your components.
Oh, nice.
And I loosely based that game off of a game called Dia Monsters, which is out of print, but it's one of my favorites. It's so simple. So yeah.
That's so cool. So you designed all of it, right? It's not like you designed the tabletop component as well as the sort of
everything's
integration.
original.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The whole thing, everything, even the design, all of the design elements. Liza Courtwright did all of that work. She's incredible. She's amazing. Any other drawings, like I either sketched out and Liza drew in Illustrator. We also brought in Wilson Michaels, who did all of the like header art pages and like did some other supplementary art in the guidebook. And it's just been a big collaboration. I've had consultants come on and help me. I've had other artists, early on, which I kind of think of like now of kind of like storyboarding out my ideas in the beginning.
Yeah.
I worked with Nigel, who's also like an amazing graphic designer, who was working on the first edition of the game. Like I really thought I was going to publish that version of the deck, which Nigel will publish it soon. But it's so beautiful, but it's very futuristic.
Oh,
so
cool.
When we jump to a more futuristic timeline, then that Reverie deck will be definitely part of that timeline.
So how long, I know that you've been working on this world for a long time. How long have you been working on this kind of idea of like a product where there is a book, but really the book is helping you unlock, these cards and find different really fun ways to use them? Is that more recent, or has that been something for years? It's been a deck, and it's a question of what deck, like you said.
The deck is just like how you would use dice. So if you're playing an Artura, you can draw from the deck and use the deck to kind of move the story forward instead of using dice. And so I never really looked at it as like anything more than that. But when I was like, I need to publish it, it needs to be a standalone thing, then it kind of needed its own world building. So then the idea is that this was an artifact that was found. Whose was it? Who's she? Why did she? So the art is like Aaron and Kaya's mom, and she was an Artura, and the tradition or the lore of the way of the Artura, which is stemming a lot from my martial arts practices and stuff like that too. So the idea is that there's like the way of the Artura is a practice that has been lost, but it's thought maybe through the best to our knowledge, right? So Aaron, whose mom passed away, he got passed down this deck, and he's trying to understand the meaning of it. He's made it his life work to publish it. So this is almost like his dissertation,
right,
where he's trying to figure out what is this, and he's learned that this is the only deck. They're republishing it, right? He's going through the Phantomos, which are the librarians, the warrior librarians in this world, the protectors of knowledge. So he's a Phantomos, and he's
that's so cool.
Devoted his long life to kind of restoring these things. So he's decided that he's going to publish this to help Artura learn the way of the Artura, right? Because he believes that you might have been born Artura, you might not know it. You might just think that you have lucid dreams, and you might not know that you actually have this ability to tap into the consciousness that takes, to the hive, and that takes practice to learn how to meditate on that level, to understand these images and be able to interpret them. And it was said that Artura would all draw their own their own deck. So they would take these symbols, they would take the structure and the system of Reverie, but they would, but every Artura, when they got to a certain point, would draw their own art, and it would have personal meaning for them that they could understand, because it'd be images that they're downloading from the hive, right?
It's a personal symbolism. But it's tied into a bigger cultural.
Yes. So the reason why this deck tells the story of the Sancta Groves is because Aaron and Kaya's mom resonated with that as somebody who was like a druid and who was really in tune with nature. But maybe you play an Artura, and maybe you decide one day that you want to make a Reverie deck, and your deck, is based off of something else, some other backstory of your world. So we've never seen any other decks.
Right.
They don't exist yet, but maybe they will one day.
Well, I think it's really cool product design, and we should move toward wrapping up, letting people know how they can get in touch. But I think it's such cool product design that you're learning the game along with the creator in a way of the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like a story about someone kind of teaching you, but you are also then learning it, and it has different functions. It's multifunctional for that character and in that world, the diegetic world, but it's also then multifunctional as a cool, fun object, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really well designed. Thank you so much, Lauren, for kind of unpacking that. And there's so much to read and learn about the lore. So that's a whole, I gotta,
I know.
sit with the book and read it.
This is just the beginning.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on. We want to know more about Mystic Aether and kind of where you're going with that, what the game will look like. I know that Chris will want to have one where we just talk about NetHack the whole time. But you could do a solo episode of him. For now, I think, we've been on about an hour, and I see that I think Wilson in the chat says it's been wonderful to work with you.
Yeah, Wilson.
So
absolutely.
shout out Wilson. And if we don't have any other questions from the chat, I think it's, a really good final question is, of course, how can people find you, connect with you, and, just anything you want to share besides just check out Reverie.
Well, definitely, if you're not already on the 20-sided Discord, get on that. I'll be making a ton of posts, or go to 20sidedstore.com and join our email list. Follow us on Instagram. You follow me personally on Instagram at Lauren Bilanko. Eventually I will have, keep uploading. There is you can draw a card of the day right now. If you go to mysticaether.com, there is, I have uploaded all of the cards, and you can just get your reading for the day. Just go ahead and click the little draw card button, and you'll get a little teaser for each of the cards. So that's up and live right now on the mysticaether.com website. And what else do I want to say? I'm going to be doing, it's coming out in October. We're going to be doing a ton of launch parties. I'm hoping to go on tour. I'll be at PAX Unplugged. I will be at Metatopia. I haven't booked anything or scheduled anything because with all this tariff stuff, I'm waiting until I literally have them physically in my hand before I make any official announcements about the date where we're all going to meet up and where we're going to be and what we're going to do. But the plan is to go on hopefully a worldwide tour over the next year or two, and perform the Rhetorica reading with a bunch of different musicians and artists and do some tea ceremonies and stuff like that. So I'm really excited for that. So maybe at PAX, if you find me, I might slip you a little letter where we might be meeting up at a destination that I will come up with in the moment. So we'll find little secret spots where we can meet up and do our coven ritual or do our, and every Friday here at 20-sided, for the next couple months, I'll be doing a coven ritual using that same Rhetorica reading, but we're all part of a coven. We're summoned to restore balance. And so it's a group role playing, kind of almost like the Quiet Year or something like that, where we're all working together, drawing, but we're going to go through all the decks. So we'll do one individually with Wythe on, Newtown Radio coming up soon. But if you want to come and try it out for yourself, at least those Fridays, you can sign up now. Registration is live on the website at 20sidestore.com to come play with me. And so lots of ways that you can connect with us. I'm very easy to find on the internet. Lauren Bilanko, Bilanko, and I will come up everywhere.
Yeah. And 20-sided, we'll have links.
And 20-sided, you can't find 20-sided, then what are we doing wrong?
No, you can definitely find 20-sided store. I will say, I really look forward to experiencing Reverie. I've seen it sort of floating around since we were here, but it's been such a whirlwind summer. And I know, you've been waiting on the production run and all that. So congrats again. We'll be at PAX as well, so it'll be really fun if people are around. If you're in New York City and have not checked out 20-Sided Store and you're listening to this show, what are you doing?
Yeah.
If you're not in New York City and you ever come by, definitely stop by. Lauren's super nice. Everyone who works here is super nice.
Oh,
and also PAX Unplugged. We'll all be at PAX Unplugged.
Yeah.
I don't think Chris and I have said, so we'll make more announcements later. But, if you happen to be in Philly, we will be with Studio 2.
Okay,
so yes, basically we will have our area. And it'll be very blister macabre, so it'll be cartoon animals and zombies galore. So definitely come say hi. We'll have to maybe we can persuade you to do a little mini reading with critters or something.
I would love to do just sit at the booth and do a reading for people, do a couple, like either reverie readings, or we could do a whole thing, whatever. I mean, if you got one chair for me to sit at and enough room for me to just like lay down a couple cards,
we'll make it happen.
Or we'll sit on the floor. We'll just sit on the floor in the middle of the hall, and the enforcers at PAX will be like, get up.
Get really mad. Yeah.
Or maybe we can work with the enforcers and have them block off an area so we can all just sit on the floor right in front of the Studio 2 booth.
So you're here first. We'll be at the trash cans and then security because
maybe I'll set up Wythe with a couple little note cards of like where we'll be doing where the coven will be meeting for our reverie rituals. I'll be passing them out, and maybe you'll get invited to an exclusive secret. It's only exclusive and secret because I don't have a plan yet. But once I have a plan, get on the Discord, and we have a con channel, so I'll be posting where I'm going to be minute to minute at PAX.
Fun. Yeah. Well, I love that. I love the scavenger hunt aspect. Listen, Laura, there's a lot we have to plan, and really it's just limited by unfortunately time, space.
Yeah.
Our experience of it anyway seems to be so damn linear, and but we'll get on top of that. And yeah, really again, fantastic product, and it just made me think so many things, like the Farmer's Almanac thing, to return to that, like grounding a game in the ecology of the world, even if it's diegetic, making that the characters think about like touching grass, or like the fact that these symbols actually have some important material meaning for reproducing society, and there is a kind of holiness in like growing food. So there's a lot of depth here, and it goes beyond just a homebrew, right? But it is coming out of, in some ways, a lot of things we talk about in the show, designing games for your friends. And in this case, I think it's been really wonderful, Lauren. Thanks for sharing your insights. Designing games for hundreds of strangers at a time. So, we'll have to have you back on because I really think there's a lot more to sort of unpack. For now, Reverie is the first Mystic Aether product from Lauren Bilanko of 20-Sided Store. And with that, I'm going to close down the stream, and we will bring you more Why We Roll in the future. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Thanks, everyone in the chat. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Why We Roll.
Our theme music is by the brilliant Sam Tyndall and Arpline.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us on all social media at Stillfleet. You can find out more about Danse Macabre, Stillfleet, and all of our games over at stillfleet.com.
Hey there, I'm Hugh from Moderation. If you like today's episode, why not check out the next session? Your D&D Agony Aunt's there to answer all of your questions. Join Adam and Alyssa as they answer questions sent in by listeners like you about how to solve the problems that come with running and playing in all sorts of different tabletop scenarios. Available wherever you get your podcasts.